And good evening, everyone. It is 1 minute after 7 p.m. here in Warsaw, Poland. I hope you guys are having a great day wherever you are. I know Lil Lomain is driving on her way to work, but thanks for the messages. And yeah, we've got Enki, we've got Quinn Blessed, welcome. We've got Horse, of course. Tatiana, thanks, good to have you. I'm glad you like the work that I put out. Let me just change that. Time Phaser, welcome, good to see you. All right, guys, so we are doing part 2. Thunderous will not be joining us today. Thunderous will be with us on Sunday. So this is going to have to be 3 parts. I'm going to try to do 20 to 21 slides today. I need to finish in about an hour and a quarter maximum because at 9 o'clock my time, that's in 2 hours from now, I will be on a Telegram channel to do another talk on a different topic. So I will drop that later. So just check the comments later. I'll drop a comment and maybe a community post. 3 is a charm. Yeah, it's a detailed subject. It needs to be dealt with in detail. From Montenegro, great. Hello, Konospiros. Well, okay, yeah. So let's just dive into the festivities here. Okay, so we covered this last week. This has been very popular for some reason. I have no idea why, but this one is called Lining Up to Use a Boy, right? From Sawakub al-Manakib, copies in the Morgan Library and the Topkapi Palace Museum, which is Istanbul, Turkey. Okay, don't know if you guys have seen this one, but yeah, this one is called Male Youth Penetrating an Adult, 19th Century Turkey, because Islam is the religion of morality. Yeah. So, a Museum of Turkish and Islamic Art, Istanbul. Okay, so yeah, that's I guess okay, fine. I'll go. Yeah, okay. There's a couple more that I might be worth sharing with you if I can find them. Yeah, women with dildo, 17th century. Yeah. Yeah, you tell me. Bought the 5th, keep making a difference, much from Flanders, Belgium. Welcome. Villainous, welcome. Mealy Dave. Okay, so yeah, women with dildo, 17th century Mughal. That would be the Muslims in the Hind, in India, what we call India today. And there's another one that's rather disturbing. I need to find. I've got this somewhere. I need to find it. It's not this one. It's not that one. Let me find this one. There's one actually that is relevant. It's actually worth sharing with you. Yeah, here it is. Let me drop that in here for a second. Yeah, let me share this last one with you. This is father giving son to the use of others, from Sawakub al-Manakib, copies in the Morgan Library, the Topkapi Palace Museum, etc. So this is a father, Muslim, giving his son to be used by other men. And you'll notice there are other boys here as well, at least one more. So make of that what you will, but welcome to Islam, the history they don't really want you to know about. So yeah. Okay, so, and some of those, not all of those, are in this book by Stephen Murray and Will Roscoe called Islamic Homosexualities, Culture, History and Literature, but you'll find more of those if you look. Welcome, Jose, Ernesto. Okay, let me close this. So now I want to go to some other references that we will be covering as we go. So I just want you to see here, death toll, over 600,000 killed across Syria. This is from the Syria Human Rights Observer. So now I'm going to say this in very scientific, accurate, detailed terms, but these are Muslims killing Muslims. So using strictly scientific language that I learned in college, therefore no one gives a shit. Muslims don't care. Okay? As many Syrian civilians can die and no one is going to care because they can't blame Israel for this. More than 500,000 Syrians dead. No Muslims care. Okay? Let's have a look. Syria, 10 years of war has left at least 350,000 dead. United Nations article. Not sure how old it is. This is 2021. No one cares because these are Muslims killing Muslims. Yemen war. Deaths will reach 377,000 by the end of the year. Yemen's war death toll could reach 1.3 million by 2030. No one cares. Muslims don't care because to speak about this would make Islam look bad because these are Muslims killing Muslims. They can get no political traction out of this. So therefore, Muslims don't give a shit, to be quite honest, about Muslims murdering Muslims in the hundreds of thousands, purely because they hate Jews. It is that simple. And there's one more message that I need to say. I have seen far too many quote-unquote Christians who clearly hate Jews. Now, my view is that if you are a Christian, my camera keeps doing this. And if you're a Christian and you side with Hitler in hating Jews, you side with Muslims in hating Jews, personally, I don't think you're a Christian. Because when Christians align with Muslims on hatred and murder and genocide, then I think you gave up your Christian card and you need to F right off. Excuse my French, but this is not something I'm happy about. Because when you align with the Nazis, with Hitler, you are not a Christian. So, yeah. So more than the far left is exposing themselves. These are Christians exposing themselves. So this is from the Syria Network for Human Rights, right? You can have a look. This is a very detailed page. You can go through this. The killing of 203,097 civilians at the hands of the influential parties in Syria. This goes back to 2016. No one cares because they can't get any traction. They can't smear and slander Israel because decade of Syria war killed nearly 500,000 people. That's 2021, France 24. Okay, and then I will come to some of these, but I want you to make a note. This is from the mayor of Jerusalem in 1899. He writes a letter to Zadok Khan, the chief rabbi of France, in which he says, the idea itself is natural, fine, and just. That is the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine, right? Who can challenge the right of the Jews in Palestine? Good Lord, historically, it is really your country. This man is an Ottoman politician. He's an Arab. He was the mayor 3 times. And he's stating here bluntly, this is a very well-known article. He died in 1907. So you can have a look at this. This is Yusuf Dia Pasha al-Khalidi. We'll mention him. This is on a website called allforpalestine.org. Okay, and he states it here. Who can challenge the rights of the Jews in Palestine? Good Lord, historically, it is your country. So there you go. Then, of course, we can... we'll speak about this. This is from a different guy. I can't remember his name, but we'll come to it later. Muslim Blood and Al-Aqsa by Bassam Tawil. Thanks to the Israeli police, Al-Aqsa is the safest mosque in the Middle East. And he says, Muhammad's hadith says, 1 drop of Muslim blood is more valuable than the Kaaba in Mecca. So the same must be true for the stones of Al-Aqsa, which is less holy than the Kaaba. We'll come to that, so make a note. Of course, this is the palace of good old Mahmoud Abbas, right? So we'll have a look at that. And we'll have a look, and then of course we'll look at some papers that I want you to make a note of. Soviet Russia, creator of the PLO and inventor of the Palestinian people. And they mention here the Palestinian people as an invented people. So who invented them? How it did so, and when and where it did it, and why. Okay, so now let's get back into our talk. We ended here with Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Nazi Mufti. He was wanted for an atrocity, terrorist attack, effectively in 1936. He sought refuge he asked for political asylum amongst the Nazis, who gave it to him. And of course, he proposed an intifada across the Middle East. That was decades ago, long before Israel was even established. Right, US official says that Turkey is also behind Hamas. Probably. The Turks don't have any love for the Jews or for the West anyway. All right, now let's continue. So we need to have a look at Israel by size. This is Israel compared to Egypt. This should be reasonably accurate. Now, you've got Israel here. This is Saudi and this is Egypt. Look at the tiny landmass, and that little grey section there, of course, is what they call the West Bank, formerly called Judea and Samaria, right? Now, of course, there is no room for Jews, but there is massive amounts of empty land in all of these countries that surround Israel. I've been to Saudi. I've been north and south, east and west through Saudi. I've been through all of Saudi. It is incredibly empty space. There's a lot of empty space. You'd be amazed what the Israelis have taken. They've taken land that was desert, land that was dead, and they've turned it into farms. They've turned it into lakes and waters and forests and arable land. And of course, it is possible to do that anywhere, but of course the Saudis, everyone else, they're simply too lazy. They don't care enough. So it's interesting, but we'll have a look at this. Let's have a look. Israel is the 154th largest country in the world. So its landmass is comparable to the island of Fiji, right? Slovenia and El Salvador, which are tiny countries. This is Israel compared to the US right here. It is less than 1/400th the size of the United States. You've got a population, I'm not sure exactly how old this is, of 9 million, right? 8.3 million, 8,300 square miles. This is India. This is Israel compared to India, right? This is Israel compared to Iran and Mexico. It is absolutely tiny. Understand? And of course, you still have to take out that little piece there called the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. This is Saudi Arabia overlaid on the US, right? Now you put Israel there. This is Israel overlaid. Do you understand? There's no shortage of space. If they really need a homeland for Fakistinians, they could put them anywhere else. But as we're going to learn, the Arab nations dislike and do not want Palestinians, and we'll see why. This is Israel. All the green here, these are Muslim or Muslim majority countries, right? Now, as you can see, Israel is this space here, but of course they have no right to exist. They have no right to a country, whereas you've got all of this green space. And I must make mention to you, most of the space you see here was Christian land. This was Christendom. The majority of this was Christian land. Then you had Buddhist territories and so on. And yeah, this is the result of Islamic colonization. Right. Now, the green area are Muslims. Now, of course, as you know, Muslims only have caves, camels, box cutters, a small minority of violent jihadis. They have no money because they don't have oil. It's not like they have oil, right? They have no oil. They have no power. They have no political influence. And they have no space for Fakistinians to go. None whatsoever. Just amazing. It's just, I can't find space on this map. Can you? The white area is Israel. As you can see in that white area, they've got unlimited money. And they've got unlimited power, and they are taking up too much space. Now, there's a word for that. It starts with a B and it ends with a T. Okay? Now, Arabs dislike and utterly distrust Fakistinians. When I spent my 11 years in the Middle East, I can assure you, working in government or with the governments as I did, they detested Palestinians. In 1990, Kuwait had a population of 400,000 Fakistinians. After the Iraq War, the Fakistinians were expelled. This was 18% of the population of Kuwait. The Palestinians and the PLO had supported Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. The support grew when Iraq attacked Israel with rockets. And the Fakistinians were considered complicit as collaborators in the Iraqi occupation of Kuwait. So what did the Kuwaitis do? The Kuwaitis said, well, we gave you a home. We fed you. You betrayed us. Get the heck out. In 1970, Jordan had 1 million Fakistinians. Now, something like 50+% of Jordanians today are Palestinian. But Jordan had 1 million Fakistinians. They openly called for and then tried to overthrow the Jordanian government and monarchy. So this led to a conflict called Black September. The PLO had their own army operating on Jordanian soil. They robbed local Jordanians to finance their operation against Israel. So they killed Jordanian police officers who intervened. They launched rockets into Israel. They tried to assassinate the king of Jordan 3 times. And then they started a 10-month-long war with the Jordanian army. They lost. And the PLO were expelled and then they ran to Lebanon. And I've been to Lebanon multiple times. I've been all across Lebanon. It never recovered from what the Palestinians did to it. Yeah, no, Turkey's a serious problem, Val. So welcome, Dr. Jonathan, Gemel, Gina, welcome. Yeah. It's sad no one here knows about this vital piece of history. Yeah, I know. It's insane. So let's have a look. In 1971, in Egypt, a Palestinian, a member of Black September, assassinated Jordan's prime minister. Now, the Fakistinians established a military and political leadership in Lebanon, which is the only Christian country in the Middle East. And they aligned with communist movements. They created a state within a state, and they destabilized the country. So 4 years after Jordan, they caused the 15-year Lebanese civil war. Lebanon has never recovered. Palestinian leaders were expelled. But the damage is done, and the Palestinians remain. Right, let me just catch up with any comments, see if there's anything that I've missed. So... Yep. Okay, so let's continue. Now, do you see a pattern here? Palestinians are known in the Arab world as troublemakers. No Arab country wants them. They believe that Palestinians are damaged, that they are greedy, they people that just want things, that they are self-righteous, entitled people. This is the Arab view. That was what I was hearing when I lived there. Right, we've already spoken about this. Okay, this is the letter that Hajj Amin al-Husseini, the Nazi Mufti of Jerusalem, sent to the Nazis offering his help. He raised an army of about 600,000 people to fight for the Axis against the Allies. And he said that the Arabs, he and his friends, would assist the Nazis in wiping out the Jews. Okay, so now, late in the 19th century, the Zionist movement emerged to establish a homeland for Jewish people. Theodor Herzl, regarded as the father of political Zionism, advocated for a Jewish state in Palestine. Jews purchased land in Palestine in the 19th century as part of broader Zionist efforts. They actually bought land. Significant purchases were made in Upper Galilee by the Jewish National Fund in 1903. Baron Edmund de Rothschild, a wealthy French Jewish philanthropist, he finances various land purchases, focusing mainly on agricultural development. A second aliyah, or wave of Jewish immigrants, starts in 1904. Jewish settlers in Palestine then buy more land. We're going to look at maps in a bit. I mean, we did look at some maps, but we'll look at more maps as we go. So despite some resistance from Arab landowners, many transactions occurred peacefully, facilitated by the Ottoman laws, because the Ottomans were in control of the region. The Balfour Declaration, 1917, by the British government, expresses support for the establishment of a Jewish homeland. So the British mandate over Palestine starts after World War I, and Jewish land purchases now increase, facilitated by the British administration. Jewish agricultural settlements called kibbutzim are established, further expanding Jewish ownership of land. Now, not all Jewish land acquisitions, according to at least the detractors, are considered legal, leading to tensions and disputes with Arab landowners, resulting in occasional violence. I have a lot more details in the notes. I'll make these slides available tomorrow, at least the section that I will finish today. So there's some level of tension, but we'll have a look at another side of that in a moment. So by the time that Israel's Declaration of Independence starts in 1948, Jewish ownership of land in Palestine has significantly increased due to purchases of land. And this serves as the basis for the establishment of the State of Israel. I find it weird that all the Arab countries sent their Jews to Israel, then they complain it's Jewish. I know, they expelled their Jews. They expelled all their Jews. Why did the Arabs expel their Jews? So the early Jewish settlements in Palestine are often established on uncultivated and undesirable land bought by Jewish philanthropists to promote Jewish immigrations. And they specifically selected land that had no settlers. They didn't want conflict with the locals. They went and got land that had no settlers. Now, you can see here the classical liberal case for Israel from Walter Block and Alan G. Futterman. Very interesting references there. So, the Jews avoided purchasing land in areas where the Arabs might be displaced. Then the Jewish population was not only subjected to violence, there were many, many, many violent outbreaks and the murders of Jews by Arabs, but they were considered second-class citizens. And specifically in Eastern Europe, there was mass slaughter in pogroms against Jews. So despite claims of expropriation or theft of land, the Jewish population received willing cooperation from Arabs who migrated to Palestine. Why would these Arabs come after the Jews got there? Well, because the Jews turned it into an actual viable economy. And the Arabs moved there because they came from, the word is S-hole places, and they wanted to actually earn a living and live in a nice place with a high living standard, and that's what happened when the Jews moved in. I should mention, a long time ago I promised I was going to do a talk on apartheid. This is exactly the case in South Africa. Blacks, the current black population in South Africa are invaders. They are not native to the region. They come from Cameroon, Tanzania, Nigeria. They are not native to the country. The black natives that were in the country, or shall we say the brown-skinned natives that were in the country, were wiped out by these invaders who came after the white settlers. Right? In large part, they came after the white settlers. So the white settlers beat them by a significant margin, decades, if not more than a century. And most of the land that they cultivated, these whites, was land that was pestilent, ridden with disease, wild animals, or just utter desert with no water. They built canals and streams and things, and they turned that desert, that hostile desert, where no one had lived for thousands of years, they turned it into a paradise. So the blacks have like roughly zero part in that, right? And yeah, so you're looking at, and of course, when these Bantu invaders, like these Nguni tribesmen, when they came into South Africa, they wiped out the local population. They killed at least 50% of the local population. They are genocidal maniacs. And, well, so yeah, there's a parallel here. So, Jewish capital and economic growth. So, Jewish capital investment in Palestine totals more than 120 million pounds back then. That's a huge amount of money, right? And productive output of the Jewish community was at 20 million pounds annually. So this attracts a significant Arab labor force. Can someone work out what 20 million pounds a year would be in 2023 money versus we're looking at here 1900 or 1850s money, right? And so what you have is then a large-scale employment of Palestinian Arabs, and then this stimulates further economic growth. And this leads to further Arab immigration, and this leads to a greater economy, and that's how that works. So European standards and employment opportunities. So introduction of European standards of wage and life created economic opportunities that attracted Arab immigrants from neighboring countries. So a considerable movement of people occurs, particularly during World War II, due to new employment opportunities in the towns and on military works in Palestine. Then you have general development and modernization. The modernization process, including infrastructure development like roads, electric power, and telephone, all contributes to the growth of the region. Did the Arabs do this? Hell no. The Jews did this. And this attracts more immigrants and more labor force because now you have a rapidly developing economy and technology, road network, trade, and so on. Understand? Arabs did not do this. For some reason, they neglected to do it for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's Palestinians. And by the way, if you do like this, please do like the video. Please share. Please subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are links in the description. And okay, so Arab development starts to occur in proximity to Jewish villages because the Jews were making businesses, and of course the Arabs settled close by for an easy commute so they could work. So Arab development is most significant in the vicinity of Jewish villages, which shows you that the Jews were creating the economic opportunities for the Arabs. Now, strangers, Egyptians and Bosnians. What is odd is that three of the most common Palestinian names are unrelated completely to Palestinian heritage. So let's look at these three very, very common, very popular Palestinian names. Al-Masri, meaning the Egyptian. 845 million pounds, so nearly a billion pounds, nearly $1 billion a year. Think about that. So yeah, thanks Oratex, very, very nice. Philistine does mean invader, yeah. So James, go check out the previous episode. Right, so now, as you know, the Egyptians, those are Palestinians, right? Because they're Egyptistinians. I don't know, I'm African, you know me. So yeah, Egyptistinians, Al-Masri, Egypt. Al-Bosni means the Bosnian. As you know, Palestinians came from Bosnia and Egypt. Bosnia is a suburb of Egypt, as we all know. And then Al-Ajami means the foreigner or the stranger. Okay. I'm missing the Palestinian part here, but apparently these are the three, if not the three most popular, or three of the very popular Palestinian surnames. Yeah, Palestinians from Bosnia. There you go. So guys, I don't know why the Palestinians don't go back to Egypt or Bosnia if these are their names. Right, now, between 1800, when the first European Jews start buying land in Palestine, and 1947, the Arab population increases from 246,000 to 1.1 million. Immigration from neighboring countries, right, is what increases the population. Right, you're Bosnian, Blue Light Moon. I guess you don't want the Palestinians then either, right, Blue Light Moon? So the neighboring states constituted 37% of total immigration to pre-state Israel. Now, Arabs were attracted to a higher standard of living and improved living conditions created by the Jews, increasing the non-Jewish population, and they drained malarial swamps. They improved the sanitation and they improved the healthcare. They built hospitals, road, sanitation, electricity. So the Arab population increases most in cities with large Jewish populations. It's weird how that happens. And these Jews had created more economic opportunities. And there was natural population growth, but it was very little. Immigration was the main cause of population growth. So the local Palestinian community's growth is primarily generated by natural increase in birth rates for both Muslims and Christians. Right? The Arab population growth rate was estimated to be 0.4% per annum, which contributed to the overall population growth. But if you look at the ramp up in the massive population growth, natural birth rates cannot account for this. It clearly was immigration. All right? So the growth in Arab towns was more modest, ranging from 42% in Nablus, 78% in Jenin, and 37% in Bethlehem. The growth in Arab towns is influenced by the creation of new opportunities due to Jewish land purchases and the development of the region. So Palestinians, oddly enough, are the only people who pass down refugee status from generation to generation, even when they become members of the American Congress. Right? Rashida Tlaib, right? So she, of course, Rashida Tlaib, this is Talib, as in Taliban, which means students of the Sharia. The Taliban, Afghanistan, the Taliban, Rashida Tlaib, you tell me what that could mean, what the implications are. But so they are passing down refugee status even when they are members of Congress. That's weird. Okay. The Queen of Jordan is Palestinian. She's a refugee, apparently. Multi-billionaire refugee. Tough job, but someone has to do it, I guess. So Palestinians who live in the territories that Palestine claim for a future state, which are Gaza and Judea and Samaria, are also considered refugees. So they are apparently living in their homeland and they are refugees in their homeland. So you're living in your house, in your land, in your own state, but you're a refugee from what? Did you... Oh, from Bosnia. How come I didn't think of that? Sorry, these are refugees from Egypt and Bosnia. Yeah, there you go. They're refugees from Egypt and Bosnia because they fled from Bosnia. Doesn't make sense. Palestinians are the only people whose national liberation movement involves the genocidal destruction of an existing UN member state. So to liberate themselves, they need to kill the Jews and destroy Israel. Now, they can have citizenship in Monaco. They can be the Queen of Jordan. They can serve in Congress. They can be a famous model and make millions of dollars a year. And they can have American citizenship, and yet they still somehow refugees. This refugee word is just abused here. It's stretched past any sense of reality. So there is little distinction between Hamas and the Palestinian people. The Palestinians elected Hamas in a landslide, something like 86%. It was a huge number that voted for Hamas. But we'll talk about this. This is an interesting story. So Mahmoud Abbas refused to hold elections for the next 15 years because he and Hamas are extremely popular and they would win these elections. They were very, very popular. Of course, there are those who don't like them. And of course, the Palestinians, I think, are seeing now just how bad. But they'll complain. And then, of course, when things go back to normal, they'll like Hamas again. So, yeah, I need to fix that slide. I see I've got a double typo there. So let me just try and fix that silly typo of mine. Okay, done. Okay, so Israel, oddly enough, is the original name of this territory, of this land, in the Holy Bible. Until Hadrian, the Roman Catholic procurator, Sorry, did I say Roman Catholic? The Roman procurator. My bad. Let me go fix that. I'd better fix that because that's bad. Oops. Typo. Yeah, I do this sometimes. So Hadrian is the Roman procurator. He is a virulent anti-Christian and anti-Semite. And he wanted to erase Israel from history. We'll talk more about him later. And he called it, oh my gosh, my typing is so bad. And he called it Syria Palestina. Right, so he goes and he calls this region Syria Palestina. Good grief, I need to read over my notes before I am. So, Ahuv Alayani, thank you for subscribing. Yeah, so he called it Syria Palestina in 135 AD, which makes it very difficult to call Jesus a Palestinian because this comes a century and a half almost after Jesus is born. So Israel's title deed to the land is very much established history. Now, notice Israel only has 0.1 to 0.4% of the land in the Middle East, right? And the fact that these Muslims are arguing and don't want Israel to have the right to exist or for a Palestinian state to exist, it's just pure religious hatred. It is Muslim religious hatred, okay? Now, let's talk about Homs, Syria, and the religion of peace. So I've showed you these articles. 500,000 killed in Syria. Silence. Muslims don't care because it's Muslims killing Muslims. To bring attention to it would embarrass Muslims. They don't care. They can't politicize this and get any political traction out of it and attack Israel. 400,000 nearly killed in Yemen. Silence. Let's have a look at Homs. Okay? This is Homs in Syria. Right? This... Where's the outrage? Anyone seen any outrage recently? Seen any Muslims complaining about this? Right? This is what Syria is doing to Syrians. What Muslims are doing to Muslims. Do the Muslims care? No. Are they hypocrites? Of course. Right? This is Homs, Syria. Internal war between the Islamic sects doesn't matter to most Muslims, like Sunnis don't care about Shia getting killed by Sunnis. Exactly. Exactly. Right? Now, by the way, we should note here, this is the Pew survey on the support for the Sharia, which apparently doesn't exist. Everyone's telling me now that suddenly the Sharia is coming out on social media, people are following my lead and posting information about the Sharia. Now the Sharia doesn't exist, apparently. But the Palestinians, 89% of them support Sharia law. So yeah, there you go. 89% of them, they got what they wanted. Because Hamas happens to be a wing of the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. Right, Muslim ethnic cleansing. So let's see, Egypt had 64,000 Jews. Now there's almost 0 Jews there. Syria had 40,000 Jews. They expelled their Jews. Iran had 100,000+ Jews. Now there's less than 9,000 left. Right? Iraq had 150,000 Jews. Now almost none. Lebanon, 20,000 Jews. Almost 0. Morocco, 265,000 Jews. All expelled. Algeria, 140,000 Jews. Where'd they go? Libya, 38,000 Jews. Tunisia, 105,000 Jews. Most of these places have basically 0 Jews. Gaza had nearly 8,000 Jews versus almost 0 today. This is not ethnic cleansing, apparently, when you ethnically cleanse Arab lands, Muslim lands of Jews. But ethnic cleansing is when the Arabs in Israel go from 156,000 to 2.1 million, and the Arabs in Gaza, as they call it, or Gaza, whatever, go from 80,000 to 2 million. Just like the blacks in South Africa were genocided when their numbers went from 2 million to 40 million. That's a genocide. Maybe they ate too much food and killed themselves. Who knows? But yeah. I'll make the slides available tomorrow. Yeah. It's Islamic hatred, pure and simple. Yes, Sonia, welcome. Thank you. Good to see you. That's why it went from Free Palestine to global jihad. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Sorry, let's continue. All right. Now, notice there were around 1 million Jews left Arab countries from 1948 till today. Right? Now, in Libya in 1945, there were anti-Jewish riots. Okay? They killed Jews. In Iraq in 1941, Jewish homes were destroyed, Jews were killed, and thousands were injured. Algeria, 1934, Constantine riots. Okay, dead and wounded Jews attacked by Muslims. Iran, 1910, Shiraz blood libel was a pogrom of the Jewish quarter in Shiraz. Okay, 12 Jews killed, 50 injured, and 6,000 Jews of Shiraz were robbed of their possessions. Now, of course, this also happened in Europe. This is something that the Catholic Church has apologized for this, to my knowledge. But of course, Protestants always didn't do nothing, right? I'd love to see some apologies there. But the church has blood in its hands in this case as well, but the Muslims never apologize. But they've been running this kind of pogrom, even in Granada in Spain. In one day, they murdered 4,000 Jews, right? Yemen, 1947, death of 82 Jews, okay? And in Egypt, there were numerous times, right, where Jews were killed, Jews were injured, possessions stolen, houses destroyed, and they fled those countries because they were maltreated in those countries. Genesis, welcome. Let's not mention the silent genocide of white farmers to the tune of 70,000 by the ANC and friends. Correct. Correct. So, yes. All right. Now, this is called the Palestine Post. Now, the Palestine Post is an English language Jewish newspaper because, as you know, Palestinians are English-speaking Arabs, right? No, they're not. The Arabs were Arabs. They spoke Arabic. This is an English language newspaper for people from Europe, right? So, now the Roman Emperor Hadrian, in an effort to destroy Jews, he renames the territory of Judea, which is the present-day West Bank, to Syria Palestina, after the Philistines, right? These are an Aegean people who conquered the coast of Canaan. They're in the Old Testament as depraved pagans who have long since vanished from history. We've spoken about that in the previous episode, so please look at the previous episode for more. Hadrian wanted to erase the memory of the Jews that he exiled for rebelling against the Romans. However, the Jews remained in Israel, as did their descendants. So Jews are the only people who lived in Israel for 3,700 years continuously. After the fall of the Roman Empire, various groups such as the Umayyads, Abbasids, Fatimids, the Crusaders, and the Mamluks occupied Palestine. None established an independent nation, including under Ottoman rule from 1517 to 1917. The Ottomans are defeated in World War I, so Palestinian then often referred to Jews in the British-mandated territory called Palestine, not country, not nation. So then we can see this is evident in the Jewish Palestine Post newspaper, today called the Jerusalem Post. And then you've got the Jewish Palestine Symphony Orchestra, now called the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra. See, these were not Palestinians, these were Jews living in a territory designated Palestine. Now, Muslims are recent arrivals to the region. As we saw from Muslim texts as well, they arrived during the Muslim invasion in 632. They do not have historical connections to ancient Israel or the territories of Judea and Samaria, commonly now known as the West Bank. Ting says, but also this documents are proof that Jewish people are the ones and only ones being submitted to genocide all those years. Yes, Palestinians try to say it's them, but there was no Palestinian people. These are Arabs from all over the place, right? Golda Meir had a Palestinian passport and then became the Prime Minister of Israel. Okay, so in Jerusalem, Jews have been a majority since the 1840s. In 1899, the three-time Arab Ottoman mayor of Jerusalem, Yusuf Dia Pasha al-Khalidi, writes a letter to the Zadok Khan, the chief rabbi of France. And he says the idea itself is natural, fine, and just. Who can challenge the rights of the Jews in Palestine? Good Lord, historically, it is really your country. Arabs from Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq settle in the region in the 19th and 20th centuries. They're attracted by commercial opportunities created by Jewish settlers. And these settlers come mainly from Eastern Europe and Russia. Now everyone goes, Jews are really Russians! Like, look man, when you've been kicked out of Western Europe, then you got to go somewhere, right? And of course, that's what happens, right? So, but Jews are, from a DNA point of view, they're a particular group, right? So they come back and they want to establish their homeland and turn it into the biblical land of milk and honey. Of course, Palestinians build terror tunnels and teach their 3-year-olds to behead Jews. So there was never a state called Palestine. There was never a Palestinian culture. In the original episode, I asked 18 questions. Okay, I have still, after years, I'm waiting for answers to those questions. I have not heard answers to those questions because everyone knows there are no answers to those questions. Palestinia is like Unicornia. It's a fake place. It's as real as Narnia. So like the Jordanians, they are a recent creation. It's a region that was invented in 135 AD, and the Palestinian people were invented in the 1960s. Now, Arabs disrespect Palestinians. They dislike them intensely. In 1948, you had 1.2 million Arabs in Palestine. Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq invade upon the establishment of modern Israel, and the demographics are, of course, transformed. Arabs fled due to the war and panic caused by false stories of Israeli atrocities that were spread by the invaders. Then you've got the May 14, 1948 Declaration of the Establishment of Israel. And this declaration promises equal social and political rights regardless of religion, race, or gender. So the new state guarantees freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, language, education, and culture. Arab citizens living in Israel are granted citizenship and all associated rights and responsibilities. As you know, Jews in Arab countries are oppressed and killed or thrown out. So instead of receiving support from their fellow Arabs, they are placed in concentration camps, and they're used as a pawn, a tool, a political football in their efforts to eliminate Israel, and Jordan occasionally provides some sporadic relief. Now, if the Arab invaders had destroyed Israel, Palestinian Arabs who fled would not have been allowed to return home, because there is no goodwill amongst Arabs, and the conquerors would have divided the spoils among themselves, leaving the Palestinians with nothing. Did you know that the first Palestine flag was a Jewish flag? It's in French Old Encyclopedia. I know about that, Lau Penio. I know, we're getting there eventually. So Arabs, from a cultural point of view, they prioritize their familial clan and tribal ties over allegiance to nation state. And in fact, in Islam, your first allegiance is to the Ummah, and you have a very distant connection to the country you live in, like in France or Belgium or Holland or Germany. Your allegiance is first to the Ummah, then to the country you came from, and then finally, maybe, to the country you're actually living in. So Palestinians are not fellow Arabs. They're seen as foreigners without land, because they know they're not a real people. Let's have a look at this hadith. This is graded Sahih, okay? Abdullah ibn Ammar narrated that he saw the Messenger of Allah making tawaf of the Kaaba. So he was, going to the Kaaba and blah, blah. And Muhammad says, "How delightful you are, and how great is your scent. How magnificent you are, and how great is your sanctity, O Kaaba. But by the one in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad, but by Allah, the sanctity of a believer, his wealth and his blood is greater in the sight of Allah than your sanctity." Muhammad is saying here that the blood of a Muslim is greater in value than the Kaaba itself, the holiest place in Mecca, which means that the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem is then even less valuable than the Kaaba, right? If the Muslim's blood is of greater value than the Kaaba, then this means that the Dome of the Rock is not of great value, according to Muhammad's own words. So yeah. Now, let's have a look. Israel's 1.5 million or 2 million Arabs today enjoy full citizenship. Palestinians in Arab countries are looked upon with contempt. Israeli Arabs, now if you've seen the Palestinian document that the Jordanians give the Palestinians, it's not a Jordanian passport. They don't get those. They get a Palestinian document. Right? Now, Arabs in Israel hold seats in the Knesset, in the government. They run businesses. They serve in Israel's civil and diplomatic services. They're exempt from serving in the Israeli Defense Force. They're not forced to. Jews are forced to go fight in the army. These Arabs are given a pass. Only in Israel are Palestinian Arabs treated humanely with full rights. Valos says also Israeli police arrest suspects for spitting near Christian pilgrims and churches. Associated Press, yeah, when will Turkey arrest the terrorists? Like never. This is actually great, thank you. I bet no Palestine supporter is actually reading the documents you're showing, or maybe not even watching. Of course not. Menj was here earlier, M-E-N-J, he was here earlier, and he said he wanted to come on and he wanted to have his chance to do a rebuttal, and I said, I'm not doing a talk show, this is just me going through the facts here. Right, now, in UN Resolution 181 was passed in 1947, proposing the creation of a Jewish and an Arab state. So the two-state solution, as they call them. So the likelihood of the establishment of an independent Palestinian Arab state is roughly zero. Okay, Israel has always been in favor of a two-state solution. In fact, it was willing to make severe compromises, to give up huge amounts of land just to have peace. We give you the land, let's be peace. Let's have peace. But there is complete lack of support from Arab countries, and therefore it's not possible. Recognizing Israel's right to exist would be a necessary step for Arab countries to endorse the two-state solution, and they do not recognize the right of Jews to live in Israel. They do not recognize the right of Israel to exist. And remember, to bring the end times, in terms of the eschatology, for Muhammad to come back, right? Muhammad will come back. Jesus will come back at the right hand of Muhammad, right? Jesus will kill the Christians who refuse to convert to Islam. Jesus will kill the pigs because there'll be no more need for pigs because everyone will be Muslims because Jesus will kill those who didn't convert. Jesus will destroy the crosses on the churches, and then Jesus will die, have kids, will have kids, will marry, have kids, and die. And of course, before that, Jesus will worship behind Muhammad as a good Muslim. That's the story, right? So, but they have to kill the Jews first. To bring the end times, Muslims must kill all the Jews. Can I get reference of this, please, if you don't mind? Which reference to which? That's in the Hadiths, but right. Now, we know that some of those, now this is from Bassam Tawil, Muslim Blood and Al-Aqsa. He says, we know that some of those who live in our villages are Jews who converted to Islam after the Muslim conquests beginning in the 7th century. And most of us are the descendants of foreign workers who came to British Mandate of Palestine from Arab countries in the wake of Zionist enterprise. By trying to trace our ancestry to the Canaanites, because the Philistine story is nonsense. They know it, everyone knows it. We lie to ourselves and demonstrate our silliness and self-deception to the world. And when we try to claim that Jesus was a Palestinian, we make ourselves an international laughing stock. Bassam Tawil in an article in the Gatestone Institute on October 31st, 2015 called Muslim Blood and Al-Aqsa. Now, Lebanese Arabs, not Palestinians, are the most likely descendants of the Canaanites. Right? This is from Chris Graham. In the Telegraph, July 18th, 2017, he discusses a study that shows ancient Canaanites survived divine call in Bible for them to be wiped out. Yep, that's just another example of hyperbolic language in the Bible. But yeah, whatever. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so moving on. Let's have a quick refresher on a map. Let's just do a quick refresher. This is the West Bank. This was known as Judea and Samaria. This region, this border that you see running here, this was Israel. This was all Israel. This was all Palestine. Right, this was all Israel. And of course, the area is called Syria, Palestine now, which includes Syria here, right? This is the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. This is Ramallah here. Jerusalem is right there, right? This is Gaza Strip here and Gaza City, right? This is Tel Aviv. This is Israel. You've got Egypt here. This is the Sinai. There's more of Egypt over here on this side. Now, so you see the West Bank. This is the West Bank. This is the Gaza Strip. This is the Sinai. The Golan Heights are up here, right? This is Gaza City. Ramallah is here. Oddly, Israel appears in the Quran 41 times. Palestine appears an exact total of 0 times, right? Now, Israel goes back, the name goes back to at least 1200 BC. The earliest archaeological evidence of the word Israel is dated to about 1200 BC. It's on an inscription carved on stone, discovered in the Egyptian city Thebes, or what we know as Luxor. The Egyptian inscription mentions a military campaign during which Pharaoh Merneptah laid waste to Israel among other kingdoms and cities in the region. The Merneptah stele, also known as the Israel stele or victory stele of Merneptah, is an inscription by the Pharaoh from 1213 to 1203 BC. I would like to find something that mentions Palestine before that, but we know Palestine is mentioned by Hadrian in 135 AD. It comes more than 1200 years after this reference. Right? Yes, correct. Now let's have a look at the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Fatah and Hamas. Let's have a look at these two guys. The Battle of Gaza from Wikipedia, 2007. The Battle of Gaza, also referred to as Hamas's violent takeover of Gaza, a military conflict between Fatah and Hamas that took place in the Gaza Strip from 10 to 15 June 2007. And this is about the Fatah-Hamas conflict. And this is a struggle for power after Fatah lost the 2006 Palestinian election. The battle results in the dissolution of the unity government and the de facto division of the Palestinian territories into 2 entities. The West Bank, governed by the Palestinian National Authority, and the Gaza Strip, governed by Hamas. I just showed you West Bank and the Gaza Strip. yeah, guys, if you'd like this, please do like, subscribe, tell your friends. And yeah, again, if you'd like to support the channel, I've got links in the description. And yeah, and keep the questions coming. It's always good, and I'll try to answer questions where I can. So the Palestinian Center for Human Rights reported at least 161 people killed over those 5 days and more than 700 wounded during the fighting. Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, because Islam's a religion of peace, okay? The kind of peace they're talking about is warm and yellow. Your dog sometimes does that when it goes for a walk. So, yeah, that's religion of peace. So the West Bank. So the Gaza Strip and the West Bank came under, originally, Egyptian and Jordanian control, respectively, following the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. And so after the Six-Day War, in 1967, Israel occupied these territories. So Jordan, the West Bank, Egyptians, the Gaza Strip. Election of Hamas. In 2006, Palestinians held legislative elections and the Hamas political party won a majority of seats in the Legislative Council. They defeated Fatah. And of course, the Israelis left that region. They walked out of Gaza and said, look, you guys are on your own. Thanks, have a nice day. In 2005, right? So they've been independent for more than a decade now, right? Building tunnels and whatever, and sending kids out to blow up. So Hamas versus Fatah. So the Fatah-Hamas conflict led to a division between the territories. Fatah controlled the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and Hamas controlled the Gaza Strip. Fatah is led by the Palestinian Authority, right, whose president is Mahmoud Abbas, while Hamas controls the Gaza Strip. In the following years, there were internal clashes and armed conflicts between Hamas and Fatah. Now, when Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, they killed a lot of the Palestinian Authority leaders. And this worsens the divide because now they hate each other and they're busy killing each other. So Hamas takes over in June 2007. There's days of fighting and Hamas forces took control of the Gaza Strip, pushing Fatah out and pushing the PA out from power in that territory. This led to two separate, both failed, both utterly dysfunctional Palestinian entities. The PA in the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza. No peace has yet been forthcoming because Islam is a religion of peace. Yeah, how would you explain that today? The Quran preaches jihad. Well, look, so Ahuv Alayani, if you go to my previous episode, I actually go through in detail a number of verses and citations from the Quran itself, which shows that Allah chose the Jews as a chosen people and he gave them Israel. Israel was given to them as their land of milk and honey. I mean, this is from... Muslims don't respect the Quran, quite bluntly, and they interpret it very differently the way we think that it is interpreted. So yeah, I mean, there's the rules of abrogation, there's rules that negate previous statements, there's things in the Hadith that negate those. It's a whole complicated story. You'd have to go through my stuff on the Sharia to explain all that. It's really complex, the abrogation and so on. But it's just a mess. Islam doesn't make any sense. It's a complete mess. So this is from the Gatestone Institute, and now we're going to talk about the Soviet Union and Palestinians, right? So now I've hopefully sketched out some good modern history that you've got, okay, of Palestine. Hopefully you're learning something useful here. So this is a book called Disinformation by Lieutenant General Ion Mihai Patsepa. He was the most high-ranking, he's typically called the most high-ranking defector from the Soviet Union in the 20th century. Now, there's only one other that's at the same rank, and you could sort of, it's questionable. Well, I mean, you could argue over who was the more important defector, but you had a Polish defector as well. I've discussed him in the past, not going to go into that now, but there was a Polish defector who quite literally prevented World War III, a nuclear World War III, with his actions. So this was one of the two most highly senior defectors from the Soviet Union in the 20th century. And his job was to work specifically on the whole Palestinian thing with the Soviet Union. So what you've got is here this article called The Soviet-Palestinian Lie. Let me just bring that up. Okay. The Soviet-Palestinian Lie. The PLO was dreamed up by the KGB, which had a penchant for liberation organizations. This is from Ion Mihai Patsepa, former chief of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Romania. First, the KGB destroyed the official records of Arafat's birth in Cairo and replaced them with fictitious documents saying that he had been born in Jerusalem and was therefore a Palestinian by birth. The Islamic world was awaiting petri dish in which we could nurture a virulent strain of America hatred, grown from the bacterium of Marxist-Leninist thought. Islamic anti-Semitism ran deep. We had only to keep repeating our themes, that the United States and Israel were fascist imperial Zionist countries bankrolled by rich Jews, and that is Yuri Andropov, former KGB chairman. Now you know that every anti-Semite, his mother and his dog, are repeating that exact theme, that the United States and Israel are fascist imperial Zionist countries bankrolled by rich Jews. This is a statement from Yuri Andropov, the chairman of the KGB. And I believe so people must be really easily duped, right? And as I've stated, there are Christians that are saying the same things the Muslims are saying the same things the Nazis said. You're not a Christian, right? You're an asshole. That's what you are. Now, we'll continue. We'll get more into this as we go. As early as 1965, the USSR had formally proposed in the UN a resolution that would condemn Zionism as colonialism and racism. Although the Soviets did not succeed in their first attempt, the UN turned out to be an overwhelmingly grateful recipient of Soviet bigotry and propaganda. In 1975, Resolution 3379, condemning Zionism as a form of racism and racial discrimination, was finally passed. Then there's the recent discovery that Mahmoud Abbas, president of the Palestinian Authority, was a KGB spy in Damascus in 1983. And of course, mainstream media didn't like that because they hate Jews and they love the Palestinians. Except that the news inconveniently came out at the time that Vladimir Putin was trying to organize talks between Abbas and the Israeli Prime Minister. So the Palestinian Authority dismissed the news. Fatah official Nabil Shat denied that Abbas was ever a KGB operative and called the claim a smear campaign. Now, all 6 of the top members of the ANC in South Africa were all Soviet spies, were all trained in counterterrorism, were trained by the KGB. Right, so let me just catch up with the... Erdogan says the world would be better off if the United States didn't exist. Turkey would be better off if Erdogan didn't exist. Andropov was because one of his hands fell. Yeah, so let me see. Let me just catch up on the comments. The poor Muslim makes logic with 1 or 2 paragraphs, then all of a sudden goes to face. Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's see. Don't quite get that. They talk about coins found with Muhammad and the cross. Yeah. Okay, so keep it on topic, guys. Try to keep on topic. All right, so let me continue here. All right. Now, what you have is the discovery, far from being a historical curiosity, is an aspect of one of the many puzzle pieces, or pieces of the puzzle of the origins of 20th and 21st century Islamic terrorism. This is not to say that Islam doesn't inspire terrorism, because it does. Jihad is terrorism. So these origins are almost always obfuscated and obscure, right? A particular narrative about the causes of contemporary terrorism while trying to call them conspiracy theories. So let's skip over this, right? So if you want to. Now, Pacepa was chief of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Romania and personal advisor to Romanian communist leader Nicolae Ceausescu before he defected to the United States in 1978. He worked with the CIA to bring down communism for more than 10 years. They described his incorporation as an important and unique contribution to the United States. So the KGB was an extremely active player in the creation of the so-called liberation movements in Latin America and the Middle East, movements that went on to engage in lethal terrorism, as documented in the Metrochen Archive, as well as in the books and writings of Ion Mihai Pacepa, the highest-ranking communist official to defect from the former Soviet bloc. So we'll talk more about that as we go. So look that up. That's the Gatestone Institute, The Soviet-Palestinian Lie by John Richardson. Have a look at that. Okay, so the PLO was dreamed up by the KGB. They had a love of liberation organizations, according to Pacepa. They destroyed Arafat's birth records, right? And they claimed he was a Palestinian by birth. And then they created, of course, the idea that the United States and Israel are fascist imperial Zionist countries bankrolled by rich Jews, according to Yuri Andropov. And then, of course, they take over the UN and they make the UN write all of these crazy, what do they call them, resolutions against Israel. Now, we've all seen Mahmoud Abbas's house. Okay, let's have another look at that. Mahmoud Abbas's house. Mahmoud Abbas has a $13 million mansion. I mean, this one is just insane. Here we go. No, not that one. Let me just zoom into this picture if I can. Yeah, this is the man's house. Now you can see where the Palestinian money is going. Right? So this is where the money is going. So Mahmoud Abbas is doing all right, I think. Right? He's going to be okay, even if the Palestinians are not. Okay, then we can have a look here. All right? Arafat's billions. This is Yasir Arafat. You may know him. Yasir Arafat diverted nearly $1 billion in public funds to ensure his political survival. But a lot more is unaccounted for. So they've traced $1 billion, but they say there's more that we don't know where he put the money. Humble man, exactly. Humble men, these leaders. Right? So far, Prince's team has determined that part of the Palestinian leaders' wealth was in a secret portfolio worth close to $1 billion, with investments in companies like Coca-Cola bottling plant in Ramallah, a Tunisian cell phone company, and venture capital funds in the US and the Cayman Islands. So what is Mr. Arafat and the Palestinian Authority worth today, asks accountant Jim Prince. Who is controlling that money? Where is that money? And how do we get it back? And so, yeah, it looks like these guys are criminals. And they're enriching themselves. Yeah. Yeah, so let's continue. The New York Times Soviet document suggests that Mahmoud Abbas was a KGB spy in the 1980s. And you know that the New York Times is an extreme far-right organization, right? Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority at the United Nations, September 2015. Mahmoud Abbas is the president of the Palestinian Authority, and President Vladimir Putin of Russia may have more in common than an interest in the Middle East peace process, because they were both in the KGB as KGB agents. Isn't that funny that the New York Times is saying that this Russian document shows that Mahmoud Abbas was a KGB agent? The recent discovery that Mahmoud Abbas, president of the PA, was a KGB spy was discarded as a historical curiosity. But turns out that seems there's a lot of evidence that says no, he was. Okay? So they called it a smear campaign, but maybe he was a Russian spy. So leaving that aside, and that's something you guys can look up on your own time, have a look into more of the documents they're speaking of here. I'll try and cover that in the last episode. Okay? Russians want the pogroms back. Yeah, so let me see. Also look up Islamo-leftism that has been working in the UK for decades. Yeah. So let's have a look. Article 22 of the Hamas Charter. The enemies have been scheming for a long time. They're speaking here of the Jews. And have accumulated huge and influential material wealth. Are they talking about Abbas? Are they talking about Yasir Arafat here? Are they talking... Okay, but they're speaking here about the Jews. This is the Hamas Charter. With their money, they took control of the world media. With their money, they stirred revolutions in various parts of the globe. They stood behind the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution, and most of the revolutions we hear about. This is the wet dream of these Muslims. Okay, this is the propaganda that a lot of Christians have taken on board. Right, conspiracy theorists who are just gullible. Right, this is the Muslim story. And yeah, the French Revolution was an atheistic revolution. This was atheism or death. I have a detailed series on the French Revolution, a very detailed series on that. The French Revolution was atheist occultism. It was through and through atheist occultism. With their money, they formed secret organizations, such as the Freemasons. Of course, I've covered in other shows that the Muslims claim, the Sufis claim to be the founders and the original Freemasons, that they infiltrated Freemasonry into Europe. They also the Rotary clubs and the Lions, and probably the Boy Scouts as well, I guess, if you're going to make a list here, which are spreading around the world in order to destroy societies and carry out Zionist interests. They stood behind World War I. That was Darwin. You can blame Charles Darwin for World War I. You can take World War I and put it squarely at Charles Darwin's feet. Thank the Germans who believed in Charles Darwin for that one. I've covered that in my series on Darwin. Look at the last 2 episodes. And they formed the League of Nations through which they could rule the world. Yeah, with something like 5 billion resolutions against Israel. Clearly they controlled the United Nations. They were behind World War II, thanks Hitler and Charles Darwin, through which they made huge financial gains. There is no war going on anywhere without them having their finger in it. I guess Homs in Syria is like the Jews doing it. No, actually it's Muslims doing it, but you can't say that. That's racist. Article 32. Zionism scheming has no end, and after Palestine they will covet expansion from the Nile to the Euphrates River. Now, from a technical point of view, to assess that scientifically, that statement is bullshit. For the simple reason that when Israel took over the Sinai and Israel took over the Golan Heights, they gave it back. Now, under the laws of war, under modern laws of war, as promulgated by the UN and the League of Nations and all that, they were entitled to that land. They could keep it. Legally, it was theirs. They were invaded illegally, and when they captured that land, that was theirs. The spoils of war, that's their business. They gave it back. Understand? If they were so desperate for land, they wouldn't be giving up Israeli land for peace. Right, so Zionism, they have no end. They want to expand from the Nile to the Euphrates. When they have finished digesting the area on which they laid their hand, they will look forward to more expansion. Their scheme has been laid out in the protocols of the elders. Sorry, what the fuck? Oh, sorry, just moving on. This is the Hamas Charter. Now, Hamas did write a second charter, a newer one, which they try to clean up. This is their 1988 charter. I think in 2017 they published a new one. They realized their current charter is it's like the rantings of Muammar Gaddafi. Putin's birth is on the same day as the Islamic massacre of Jews in Israel, October 7th. It was a birthday gift from the Muslim Brotherhood. That's interesting. Thank you, Crusader, for the support. I really appreciate the donation. Thank you very much. Right. So by spreading Hamas conspiracy theories, a lot of Christians and others must be working for dinars, because apparently I'm getting paid by the Jews. Hey, Mossad, my checks are late. Can someone send me checks? Because I don't live in a great... I was hoping to get a 2-story mansion by now. Something like Mahmoud Abbas, if you can help out. Okay, so let's look at the Hamas, okay, the Islamic Resistance Movement. That's actually their name, Hamas, the Islamic Resistance Movement. Let's look at the Hamas Covenant, 1988. The Covenant of the Islamic Resistance Movement. In the name of the most merciful Allah. Okay, they're doing it in the name of Allah. I thought they're doing it... Okay, fine, they're doing it for Allah. Allah said go murder Jews or something. Article 22. For a long time, the enemies have been planning skillfully and with precision for the achievement of what they have attained. They strive to amass great and substantive material wealth. With their money, they took control of the world media. You'll notice these days that the Muslims... Now, I have a series called The Arab Lobby. Actually, let me go to that now. Let me actually do that now. This is going to be useful. If you want to see about the history of the... Okay, so you need to look at this. Okay, let's just go to my channel. Let's go to videos. I think it's under live. Here we go. Okay, so if you want to find out about the truth of this statement that the Jews own everything, I've gone through this in this series. This is a 3-part series here. I do a very detailed analysis using the finances, using sources, using the sources. You can check yourself, and I provide all of the financial sources. So you can check those financial sources for yourself. But the simple fact is the Arabs have at least 50 times more money that they are pumping into propaganda, universities. That's why they control the universities. I go through exactly the funding that they've been pumping into universities, into media, television, into governments. They have been buying allegiance. They've been buying loyalty, right, with their money. And the comparison, there is no comparison. Their political clout is vast. It is insane. Okay, so you need to look at this, the power of the Islamic political lobby. You need to look at the series to find the facts about this crap here. They took control of the world media, the news agencies, the press, the publishing houses. You'll find out the Muslims just overwhelm the Israelis with money, and it's just insane what they've been able to do with that. So yeah, that is the Article 22. So last 2 slides, then I call it a day, because in 50 minutes I'm doing a different stream on the Genesis channel. Someone from Genesis, can you post a link to your Telegram channel, please, so that everyone who wants can come over in 45 minutes or so. So last two slides, the Commie World Peace Council. The World Peace Council was expelled from France. Behind its supposedly French facade, it was as purely Soviet as could be. Its daily business was conducted by a Soviet-style secretariat, 21 members, undercover foreign intelligence officers from 9 Soviet bloc countries, USSR, Poland, Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and so on. The World Peace Council also had 23 Soviet-style vice presidents, all commies, divided as follows. 4 represented communist countries, USSR, Poland, East Germany, Romania, and 3 represented communist governments loyal to Moscow, Cuba, North Vietnam, Angola, and 2 represented the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, and the African National Congress. Sorry, the African National Cancer. Both were anti-American terrorist organizations sponsored by Moscow. Right? So anyone from the Genesis Telegram group, just please drop the link to the talk. Final slide, guys. I'll finish here today. Soviet Russia, the PLO, and Palestinians. This is Ion Mihai Patsepa, and that's him over here as well. So Soviet Russia is the creator of the PLO and inventor of the Palestinian people. Soviet disinformation masters created the PLO in 1964, introducing the fictitious Palestinian people. Thank you very much, Lil Lomain. Thank you. And they introduced this fictitious Palestinian people who are seeking self-determination. The term was first used to describe Arabs in Palestine in the preamble of the 1964 PLO Charter. Where was the 1964 PLO Charter created? Oh yeah, in Moscow. Moscow was, let me see, hold on, I'm battling it. It was Anglican, it was Mormon. Oh God, Moscow was, 60s Moscow was Protestant. Oh my golly, communist. So yeah, let me see. I wonder, very, very weird that that charter was drawn up in a communist country. The Soviets were in the business of creating liberation organizations for Palestine and Bolivia in 1964. Colombia, typo, 1965. And in the 70s, the Secret Army for the Liberation of Armenia that bombed US airline offices in Europe, and of course the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine that bombed Israelis. The PLO was by far its most enduring success. And what you're asking, James Alexander's right. 60s Moscow was not communist because it wasn't real communism. You're right. So Major General Ion Mihai Patsepa is the highest ranking defector from the Soviet bloc during the Cold War for nearly 4 decades. He says the PLO has been the largest, wealthiest, and most politically connected terrorist organization in the world. For most of the time, it was held in the firm grip of Yasser Arafat's iron fist. But Arafat was not the fierce, independent actor he posed. He was completely dependent on the Soviet KGB and its surrogate Warsaw Pact intelligence services for arms, training, logistical support, funds, and direction. According to Patsepa, his KGB handlers included Vasily Samolenko, Vladimir Bulyakov, and Soviet ambassador Alexander Soldatov. Arafat's closest friend and head of the PLO intelligence, Hani Hassan, was an agent of the DIE, the Romanian subsidiary of the KGB. Patsepa was the head of the DIE. So this was being handled through Patsepa and through Romania as a cutout. And you can find more about this in Wallace Edward Brand, Soviet Russia, creator of the PLO and inventor of the Palestinian people. That's January 28th, 2014. You can go to the SSRN website. That's this website here, the SSRN. Soviet Russia, creator of the PLO and inventor of the Palestinian people by Wallace Edward Brand. And you can see more about that there. Right? SSRN is some sort of research site, and you can download the paper, and it even has a DOI number, so it's got a citation there for that. And yeah, you can see the links here. And I think that's it from me. I will wrap up. We will talk more about Hamas again. We'll talk about Hamas as a wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is the world's largest terrorist organization, probably today. And it is a secret society, and it is entirely based on the Sharia, on Muslim law. And the IRA, yep, so hold on, they've bought educators, media, and politicians. And that's why you see them so successful today, with all of these pro-terrorism marches that we see today. So guys, that's it from me. Thank you for your time. I hope you've learned something. Please do like, share, subscribe. Again, if you'd like to support the channel, I do not run ads on my channel whatsoever. I detest ads, so I earn nothing. I earn no revenue off any ads. So yeah, that's I don't enable those whatsoever. So if you'd like to support the channel, the Genesis link is just above. It's let me just get that for you again. I'll drop that in the chat. So that's in the chat. There it went. So Genesis Law. So guys, thank you. I'll be talking again in 45 minutes. I have to get some dinner because I had to work on the slides and then get ready because I came home. Then I had to finish the slides and get ready. So guys, thank you. That's it from me. I will see all of you soon if you go to Genesis Law. Use this information. Don't let people lie to you. While people who lie are well practiced at lying and they've got lots of money, they're very committed, their work is fragile. It is very fragile. It will break. Truth will break it. So you don't have to, you might not be George Soros with $1 billion, but you are sand in the gears. Be sand in the gears. Understand? You can stop them. You can grind their gears and you can grind them to a halt. Just use the facts, push the facts, know the truth, be the sand in the gears. And I will see you guys soon. Thank you. Good night. See you on Sunday. Bye.